I started looking into honor killings in Pakistan, and that is when the members of a family will murder another family member on the basis that they have dishonored their family in some way. I started looking at these victims and these women, and kind of just how honor killings and the atmosphere of society that allows for that kind of thing to happen plays into the lives of Pakistani women, and how it not only affects women in those communities but also how it affects a Pakistani woman such as myself. I was lucky to have been born in a very privileged family in Pakistan, so obviously a lot of these problems do not apply to me. I started out doing my research and gathering images of inspiration. A lot of them were very graphic because they were all photographs from news stories, and they were all photos of victims of honor killings, which were really graphic because of course they were dead bodies and they were very gory. And that was difficult for me to try to take images of inspiration that were so graphic and so difficult to look at and try to translate that into design sketches and muslins and fabrications. But I kind of looked to Urdu calligraphy as one of my visual anchors, which is Urdu is the national language of Pakistan, and I tried to use that as ways to translate my inspiration of honor killings into something that was more beautiful and more workable in terms of design. So I started taking phrases and words that I thought represented victims of honor killings. So a lot of words such as Azad, Bahadur, Taqatvar, which are all Urdu words which translate to free and brave and strong, which are words that I associate with these women. I started doing a lot of line drawings. This is one of the ones that I did using the words Azad and Bahadur. These are some drawings that I did using Urdu calligraphy and incorporating them into the female body. So here is a Urdu word that I wrote, Azad, which means free. I also translated it into a fabrication where I laser cut it onto fabric, which I'm probably going to use in one of my final iterations of my garments. This is another fabrication I did using calligraphy as one of my inspirations. Are some of the looks and my fittings that I've done, and the inspiration images that go along with each one. So these are collages that I did. I found vintage photos of women from India from around the 1870s, and they are dressed in a very traditional way. And I took naked bodies and kind of collaged them over that. These are some more collages that I did, and along with the casting and using sculpture as part of my looks, I'm trying to, for the fabric part at least, drape in a way that is a nod to traditional silhouettes from Pakistan. So I'm using as inspiration things like the sari and shalwar kameez, and draping in ways similar to that, so that I kind of have that traditional aspect tied into something that is very provocative, which is the nude female body, to really represent that personal aspect of my thesis, and kind of bring myself into my thesis in a way to show the relationship between me and these women. And I started doing that through the process of casting. So what I'm trying to do is to use parts of my body in the garments to represent myself, and I kind of want to use the female body as a symbol and representation of liberation and freedom. So I've been doing that by casting parts of my own body and incorporating those into my designs. So essentially, I hope to, in my collection, create looks that are part sculpture and part garment. So I've been using plaster to collage on the dress form to kind of figure out what parts I want to cast, what parts of my body that I want to cast, and what parts that I want to be fabric. So I used plaster and I used silicone to create a mold of my body, which I then later cast in resin, and these are the layers of the mold. And then I set resin into this, which came out looking like that. So it's kind of a reproduction of my body, which is about this part that I did. And I'm hoping to bring this in as part of my garments. I want there to be something very unsettling when you look at things that I will be creating, and I'm exploring that through distressing fabric. So that means pulling apart threads, creating holes. I just don't want for the fabric and for the garments to look like they haven't been through something and that they haven't been through a struggle, because I don't think that that would be representative of the lives of these women in any way. So I'm trying to use fabrics that are very loosely woven, that are like very gauzy, things like this, and organza, where I can really pull apart the threads and create different textures. These are some of the experiments that I have done, and some of the other experiments that I have done that have turned out well are pulling apart the threads in a way that creates images in the fabric. So this is one where I pulled apart threads and applied pressure into the fabric to create 2 nude figures, and this was a fun experiment to do just because there's 2 different colors of thread that have been woven into this fabric, which allowed me to create an image that really stood out. These are some of my initial sketches that I've done. These parts incorporate the areas of my body that I intend to cast into resin, and the rest is of course going to be in fabric. Here I'm trying to do sort of like a hybrid of using the top part of this to represent the sari, and then I'm hoping to cast my hip and down my leg. What I didn't realize about my collection was that I was trying to tell a story about these women and these victims of honor killings, but I didn't realize just how different my understanding was of their lives and the way they've been brought up and the communities in which this happens, because I was brought up and raised in a society that is 1% of Pakistan's population, and things like honor killings are happening as part of what the other 99% of the population is going through. And I always thought that just because I was from Pakistan and that I was Pakistani, that gave me the authority to tell the story of its people, which I now realize isn't the case, because the truth is that I really don't know much about them, and that's been a really difficult realization to come to, but it's something that I'm so grateful for my thesis and for this process to have revealed to me, because now when I go back during winter break to Karachi for a few weeks, I'm really going to try to engage with those communities and talk to these women and really try to understand what their lives are like to be able to do this justice, because I need to hear from them